Thanks everybody for joining us here this morning. Really excited to be here today. My name is Jeremy Finn. I'm a director of sales here at Minga. And this is actually going to be my first webinar with Minga. So really excited to be kind of walking everyone through hopefully a really healthy and interesting discussion on digital hall passes and, the changes that we're seeing at schools and districts across every state in terms of actually taking control, I think, of the hallways in a more effective and modern way. So really hope that everyone is able to get into the chat. There's like a question and a chat there. Would love to try and communicate through there as we're going, make this as interactive as possible. But yeah, why don't we get going and we'll see how this goes. Awesome. So maybe just before we get started, a few housekeeping items. So just so you're aware, we can't actually see you right now. I think it's probably just my floating head on the screen, the guy with the big headphones on. If you do have a question, like I said, there's a chat box there. You can get in there and type away. And then this webinar is being recorded. And of course, we will follow up with all of you after. So we'll send over a few emails and make sure you get the slide deck. And then, of course, if there's any questions that you have, or if, after being a part of this session, you think, you know what, I think I need to learn a little bit more and we want to dive in, feel free to reach out and, we can book you a demo and get on a call and talk about, whatever other details you're looking for. Chat is disabled. Okay, interesting. Where did you type that, Shine? I can see your comment there. So maybe it's just right now you're able to send messages directly to me, but maybe not as a group. I'll get the team to, maybe May and Giuseppe can look at that. You had to click on the Q&A. Okay, interesting. Okay, we'll have our team look at that and we'll keep going, but we'll see if we can sort that out so that the chat's there. I can see your questions at least. So if you want to communicate to the group, there's about 10 of us in here this morning. Feel free to throw that in the Q&A area and I can pass that along to the greater audience. Okay, awesome. So going to do a bit of an overview, of course, what is a digital hall pass? I think it probably makes sense for most of you, but we'll kind of talk about what the differences are between maybe what some of you are currently doing and what's available in the market today. And then we're going to focus in on three key topics. So, having consistency for both staff and students, obviously increased safety and how we can actually reduce some of those frequent flyers that you're dealing with. And then really, I think what, in my opinion, is the most important part is the data. So, how do we actually hold students, staff, administrators accountable? And how do we have those difficult conversations with parents and guardians? And then, of course, along the way, and then at the end, we'll save some time for Q&A. I think we're slotted in for 45 minutes, but we're not going to force anyone to be here that whole time. So we'll see how much time we take up, but we do have 45 minutes scheduled today. If you have any questions, again, just feel free to throw them in the Q&A there and we'll chat through that. Cool. So, I mean, when we look at the market right now, digital hall passes are blowing up. Okay. The total volume of spend on technology in the K-12 sector right now is growing rapidly. It has been, since early 2020, since COVID, obviously. Predicted to be over $132 billion across the US in total spend. Over 1,000 of the school districts purchased digital hall passes last year. So if you think about that from a scale perspective, all of the schools that actually exist within those specific districts, this is not a technology in the early adopter phase. It's being used and being leveraged successfully, probably at a school in your district potentially, and if not, definitely in a district near you. So it's something that's working. From a Minga perspective, we actually delivered over 10 million hall passes last year, which is pretty cool when you think about the scale. That's a lot of bathroom breaks, a lot of fountains, a lot of trips in and out back to the classroom. So before we get going, I'd love to understand from everyone here, like, what's your biggest challenge in the hall right now? So I don't know if everyone's able to just throw in the chat, like anything and everything. Just want to hear from you. Maybe this is a bit of a therapeutic moment. You can share some of those challenges that you're facing, but yeah, I would love to hear some things and share it with the rest of the group as you're typing in. Definitely tardies coming from Tara. Yes, that is a huge issue. It's something that we hear and talk about all the time. Losing hall passes, yeah. So that reminds me of some interesting stories that I've heard from a few leaders at some different districts. I'm assuming, Vanessa, that you have uh, maybe a lanyard or a piece of wood potentially or something that's being used. Anybody else? Come on, what's going on? Sanitization of the hall passes, yes, Vivian. This is actually really relevant when you think about students going in and out and doing their duty in the bathroom, yet they have to go and actually, grab something that every other student's been grabbing every day for the last however many years. I know I can speak for myself, as embarrassing as it is. It took me a while to learn how to wash my hands properly. And I'm sure there's a few of us on the call who know that as well. Okay, cool. Well, this is helpful. I mean, these are really common issues. Other issues that we hear about, obviously vandalism is a big challenge. Vaping is a huge topic and discussion. Just overall bathroom hangouts. And then I think again that parent conversation, how do we actually remove bias from those conversations, both with students or with teachers or with parents? We want to be able to remove that bias and make sure that we're treating everyone equally as well. And I think that's a really big hidden benefit of going digital. So how does it compare? So obviously you all have your current setup for hall passes. I mean, one quick story that I've heard, which I think is really interesting, but probably relatable. There's a school where their hall pass is actually a toilet seat. Okay, so you have kids in the classroom grabbing a toilet seat and then taking it with them to the bathroom and bringing it back. And I think, obviously that's a really great symbol. If you're a hallway monitor, you definitely know why that child's in the hall, and you're not going to mistake that. That being said, not very sanitary. I think a bit odd, and really not effective in terms of measuring that. So right now, we want to be able to take this old traditional system and we want to modernize it. We want to make it easy for the students. We want to make it easy for you, staff and administrators. And then we want to be able to actually have a data-driven conversation with everyone that's involved. So what are some of these key benefits to switching to digital hall passes? So consistency, right? So by going digital, you're going to create consistency for every stakeholder. You're going to provide clarity. When we think about your school, you have all these different classrooms with all these different teachers who have different levels of acceptance for certain types of behavior, and they're going to interact with their students in their own way. And so as a student, as you begin your journey every single year with maybe new teachers that you're working with, you actually have to learn and adapt to each class and each teacher to understand exactly how they manage, a simple thing like going to get a drink of water or going to the bathroom. And so, that can create challenges for the students, and it also can create challenges for teachers, right? Because they're having to constantly re-educate and teach, each class that they have how they like to manage and housekeep within their classroom. By going digital, we can actually provide one consistent, clear process for every classroom, for every student, so that everyone knows, no matter where they are in the school, how they actually manage themselves and others in terms of how they go in and out of class. And this is a major change that really helps decrease that hallway traffic and just make it more manageable for you as well. Safety and frequent flyers, right? So we're always going to be focused on safety. I mean, we want to be able to know where students are at any time during the day. In an emergency situation, being able to see all of the children or the kids that are actually in the hall at any given time is a massive step up from having actually no idea which students are in the hall and which students are in the classroom. I mean, it's as simple as either you have that information or you don't, and that makes a massive difference. And then, of course, like I mentioned earlier, having data for the hard conversation. So I'm sure you've all been there, you know, parent-teacher interviews, or maybe it's an intervention for a student that's going through a hard time. And it's turns into a he said, she said conversation between you and the student, or between potentially you and the parent. But when you have the data to show, you know, the amount of time, how many hall passes, what types of hall passes, which classes that they're trying to get out of, that conversation becomes a whole lot easier, because you're not making it up, right? You have the data to back it up, and now you can actually have a constructive conversation and focus on improvement with those parents and with those children as well. So I would be curious, anyone on the call, do you have a digital hall pass solution right now? Or what's everyone doing? Do people have, you know, a piece of wood that they're using, a spoon? Is anyone writing things down? Maybe a Google spreadsheet? Yeah, let me know in the question section how you're actually managing the halls. Would be curious to hear what techniques. We've heard some very interesting ways that people are doing this.
Jeremy, I might actually ask you to try to turn the chat on. So
Okay.
if you go to the bottom, the little arrow next to the chat, you should be able to change your settings.
Unfortunately, no. It just says show chat previews.
Okay, yeah, no worries. We'll keep you using the Q&A.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for trying there, May. Sorry, everyone.
No worries, no worries.
So it sounds like Vanessa, yeah, using lanyard passes and sign out sheets. You know, that actually reminds me of something interesting that I think is relevant as well, is if we go back here to switching to digital hall passes, and that's teacher interruptions, right? So when we think about teachers and, you know, why they got into education in the first place, and I'm sure most of you started your journey there as well, you know, they wanted to teach, right? They wanted to educate the youth. They didn't want to come in and manage the classroom. And that's another huge advantage and change that you can have at your school by going digital, because it essentially removes a lot of that responsibility, a lot of the weight that's probably resting on their shoulders right now. And you can actually automate a lot of those decision makings. So Cheyenne, interesting, teachers were gifted hall passes today for day 2 of teacher appreciation. Wow, okay, that's exciting. Congratulations. They're a magnet to hang outside the bathrooms. There's also sign-up sheets, and the sign-up sheets are used pretty inconsistently. So yeah, I mean, that's super common. I think, you know, if it's great to ask students to go and do an action, but again, if we don't have data to be able to see who's doing this action and who's not, how can you quantify it? How can you have a conversation about improvement? How can you actually know, you know, what's working and what's not? So it's great that you're making those strides, but again, I think the data piece is really, really crucial. Okay, fantastic. So when we think about one consistent process for everyone, you know, how do we actually get everyone at your school on the same page? So rolling out one policy across campus, and that's managed from you at the top, but then it's accessible for students and it's accessible for teachers. So it's not like anything's hidden from anyone. Everyone has access to their own dashboard that shows them their information. You know, you can have student-led workflows to give them autonomy to actually, you know, manage their time in the halls and pick and choose what they need. You could have teacher-approved hall passes, or you can have teacher-led workflows as well. So if for some reason it makes more sense at your school to have the teacher kind of managing the assignment of those hall passes, you can have that supported from a digital perspective. So it's not a one kind of size fits all. There's a ton of flexibility when you go digital to be able to choose what process actually makes sense for you at your site with your student base. And what's really cool is it actually works, right? So it's a great example from a smaller school, West Catholic High School. So grades 9 to 12, you know, the director, Jeff, saying there's a lot of wasted time for teachers managing hall passes, and now they're starting to see more and more efficiencies. So more classroom time is being used for teaching versus managing, who's going on the hall and these sign out sheets and some of these kind of old school processes that we've seen. So in their first 3 months, they had 40,000 hall passes created, 41 extra hours of class time over the first month. That's across the entire school, and an 8% decrease in time spent out of class. And the cool part is, how could you actually have that type of a data-driven conversation without going digital? You just can't. Unfortunately, you won't be able to measure. No one has the time to actually do the math within any Google spreadsheet these days. We're just trying to do the best we can. So this is a really cool case study, and when you get the slides after the call, you'll be able to hop in there and dig a little bit deeper on that. So why go digital? Point number 2. So reduce classroom disruption. So that's us thinking again about trying to protect our teachers, trying to lower that teacher attrition, make them get back to why they fell in love and why they wanted to be in the classroom in the first place. So you can create different types of passes and set customized restrictions, right? So think about all the different reasons that a student needs to go in the hall. They need to go to a counseling session. They need to go see the school nurse. Maybe they need to go from one class to another class for a study hall. Maybe it's a tardy slip because they've actually shown up late and they've checked in at the tardy station at the front of the office, and now they need a tardy hall pass to go from there to the classroom. And we actually want to measure how long or give them a certain amount of time so that they actually go from that tardy station directly to the classroom instead of getting off and going somewhere else. A really big issue that we hear about is, certain groups of students obviously congregate together, right? So they're going to text each other, say, hey, let's go meet up in the bathroom, let's go do this or that. And actually having the ability to establish rules within your digital hall pass solution that allows you to establish, certain students actually aren't allowed in the hall at the same time. So if Stu is in the hall and Annie is not allowed to be in the hall with Stu, it's really easy for you to set that up. And now when Stu's in the hall for a bathroom, on a bathroom pass, Annie's not going to be able to actually get access to a pass until Stu has ended his and is returned back to the classroom. And I mean, imagine the change that one setting could make for you at your site. And then again, we've been talking about this, reducing classroom disruption with student created passes. So think about it right now. Teachers teaching in their lesson, they're 15 minutes into class, and Jeremy, I asked to go to the bathroom. The teacher says, yes, you can go to the bathroom. I come up to the front of the class, they write me a slip, hand me a lanyard. Then the teacher's thinking, okay, now I have Jeremy in the bathroom. They're going back to teach their class. 5 minutes later, somebody else has to go to the bathroom, but, I haven't returned. And now they're thinking, oh, well, where's Jeremy? And then they have to make, go through this decision process to actually determine if they want to send somebody out in the hall. Like it's a really hard task. Like you already have 30 plus students in your classroom, and then you're trying to manage, who's going in and out while teaching. It's no small feat. So imagine taking that entire action, all of the decision-making that goes on, and putting it into a digital hall pass solution. So you, from the top at the administrative level, can determine how many hall passes are out for the single day across the school. How many hall passes can a single student have during the day? You can black out the first 10 minutes and the last 10 minutes of every period, so that any students that are in the hall during the first 10 minutes of class, they're late, right? Because they're not on a hall pass. They're either in class or they aren't. And so it just changes the entire environment of the hallways from day one, essentially, when you go digital. So I think this is really, really cool. So again, another cool example. So a bigger school this time. So we're looking at Danbury High School, 3,500 students. And Andrew, their assistant principal, is talking about how hallway traffic is down. And they definitely credit that to using Minga to its fullest potential. We're able to restrict passes, add students to no party groups like I was chatting about. And the kids are actually moving with purpose, which I love. I think that makes a lot of sense, right? They recognize that, hey, I'm here to learn. I'm here to go during this time from my class to my next class and get there in a timely manner. One of the cool things that a lot of our customers will do, a lot of schools will do, is they'll start their journey digital where they'll actually leave it open during the first few weeks. So not fully open in terms of restrictions, but they won't restrict the hall pass process too much. And that's because they want to actually collect a baseline level of data. right? So right now they're operating like, I think Vanessa and Cheyenne were talking about lanyard system or sign out sheet. So there's going to be essentially no really hard line or hard fast restrictions. And that way they understand kind of what hallway, the health of their hallways looks like today. And then they'll slowly start, making adjustments based on the volume that they're seeing until they get to a happy medium or a place where they feel more comfortable. And then you can see really measurable change, right? So you can say, hey, this is what we were looking at. We were looking at, 40,000 hall passes a month. And now we've actually restricted that down to 30,000 hall passes per month, for example. And that's just a massive difference. It's measurable change that you can communicate to staff. You can talk to teachers about that, maybe incoming teachers or teachers that you're trying to recruit to your school, and then of course the students. One of the interesting stories I heard from a student, which I think is really great. Minga digital hall pass solution was deployed at a site, and during the first month, this student who was a student leader representative on the school board. So every month they would bring the student leader, they'd have a seat at the school board meetings. And it was kind of like a learning opportunity for them. Anyhow, their first month, they shared feedback, I don't like Minga. Like it's not working for me. This digital hall pass thing, like nobody likes it. It's no good. Like we shouldn't have done this. And so the school board kind of heard that feedback, said, okay, like thanks for sharing. They chatted through that. The second month, student comes back, same student. I love Minga. This is the best thing ever. This has changed my life. And the school board says, okay, like why? What's going on? I don't understand. What's changed? He said, I can go to the bathroom. I know that there aren't going to be people in there. I feel safe in the hall, and when I go to the bathroom, because I know that I'm not going to run into any of those issues that I was facing before. So like students actually start to recognize some of the trade-offs. Yeah, maybe there'll be some new restrictions and rules that I have to follow, but now I actually get the benefit of feeling safe anytime I go to the bathroom or have to do something during classroom or class time in the hallway. So I just think that's a really cool story, and it makes total sense, especially if you're dealing with any of those issues that we were chatting about earlier in the hall. Okay, and then kind of shifting into this third point about going digital. So improve accountability. So this is the data, right? Understanding really clearly, which students, which teachers are actually following the process. Who are your frequent flyers? Who's causing you the most challenges, both from a staff and a student perspective, right? And I mean, change management is difficult, of course. But it's way more difficult if you don't have a way to measure the results. If we insert a change, but we don't have a way to see who's adopting this change, then how can you continue to move forward week by week, month by month, semester by semester? So one of the things that you get with a digital hall pass solution is a really clear hall pass dashboard. So anyone from the administration or teacher side can get access to the dashboard and see live, every single active hall pass that's out there. You can see how much time's remaining on those hall passes. You can see overdue hall passes. In the reporting area, you can actually start to see, total volume. So all of these things that are going to be really helpful for any conversation that you need to have with anyone throughout the process. And it's really straightforward from a reporting perspective as well. You can actually create, monthly exports or weekly exports that get sent to you. So if you're busy and you're a principal, but you want to be able to see kind of how this change is going, you might not even have to log into the solution that you're leveraging. You can just get those emails on maybe a Friday afternoon or a Monday morning, whatever you schedule that for, and you can review how did last week go. What challenges did we have? Were any students kind of moving up and down in terms of spending more time than they usually would in the hall? What's going on? Do I have to do any interventions this week? Do I need to have any discussions? It's just powerful information that you just simply don't have right now, that you can have really easily and really quickly, more importantly. And so then again, we're looking at a third kind of case study here. So this is Pasco High School in Washington. So kind of in the middle between the two schools that we've looked at already, 2,500 students. And Justin, who's manages behavior and interventions, talked about how they didn't have any data before Minga, but now they can see trends in terms of students in the hall. Hugh's using a lot of passes, the key times where more hall passes are being used, which is really interesting, understanding kind of that ebb and flow of kind of your daily schedule. And then they can actually make data-driven decisions, which I just think is so powerful. And again, massive decrease in terms of overall time spent in hall, amount of hall passes, and just students in the hall at the same time, which is a win-win for students, staff, teachers, all across the board. And I know that you all know this. I mean, this is why you're here. So, I mean, 3 fundamental reasons for moving digital. So maybe I'll just toggle all the way back to the start in terms of these 3 reasons. So, would love to, try and open it up to the chat. I know we don't have the chat to the Q&A. Any questions on hall passes or some of the topics that we've discussed? I know it's been about 30 minutes here, so would love to, try and answer some specific questions. Do you have passes for visitors? So Minga, right now, it's something that's on the roadmap. So it's not something that we specifically provide today, but it is something that we're actively working on and looking to support, Vanessa. If that's a really key issue for you, would love to, get on a call and chat through that. And we can share a little bit more information about what we're working on. Doris asks, can we set the time? We can set the time to be out of the class. Yes, so there's a running, you can determine for every hall pass, so whether it's a fountain pass or maybe it's a counselor pass to go from class to the counselor, we can actually set how much time is available for each of those passes, and then it's just a clock that's counting down. So yeah, great question, and you can customize that. Lots of schools will start, maybe they'll start at 8 minutes for a bathroom pass, and then they'll slowly knock it down depending on whatever trends they're seeing. Is there notification? Maybe can you expand on that a little bit? So one thing that we have is when you have a pass, it'll be gray, and then when it goes overdue, it'll actually turn red. So that's something that would kind of notify you to see any of the hall passes that are overdue. So Julie is saying teachers use Google Chat each time a student leaves the class for the bathroom. It also creates a timestamp for when they leave and what time they return. So the same action actually happens with Minga, or with most likely any digital hall pass solution, is that when the hall pass is created, timestamp, right? So we know that Johnny had a hall pass at 8:30 in the morning, and then there's a timestamp for when that hall pass was ended, whether it was overdue or it wasn't. And that's really critical, right? I was talking to a school where it was funny. We were chatting about their renewal for their subscription, and just 10 minutes earlier, they had some vandalism in the bathroom. Okay, and so they went into the Minga, they went on their dashboard, and they looked from this time to this time. I think it was a 25-minute period. They looked to see every student that was in the hall or had a bathroom pass during that time. And then 15 minutes later, they had sorted out exactly who had done the vandalism, done the wrong there in that situation. They were able to pull them out of class, have that intervention, and have that discussion, and then kind of action some next steps. So really powerful for any situation like that where you need to actually see what's going on. Are we as admin team setting this, or do teachers have access to modify or set times? So most schools will just have the admin team set that up. Again, that's part of the idea, Tara, of having kind of like a clear and consistent process, both for all teachers, but I think more importantly for all students, right? We want to kind of create these learned behaviors that are consistent. So no matter which class they're in, they're actually, they know what to expect no matter whose class they exist in. And it helps too when you think about, like, if you're a high school, 9 to 12, you have these students from grade 9, 10, 11, 12 for 4 years. So they come in grade 9, they're going to learn, if they haven't learned already in their middle school, because they're using Minga or a digital hall pass solution, they're going to learn how to use this right away. But then for grade 10, grade 11, and grade 12, there's no learning, right? They show up to school day one. They know the moment they enter their new teacher's classroom, who they've maybe never had a classroom before, they understand how to operate within the halls. They don't have to, learn the unique process that teacher has, because it's consistent in every classroom at your school. Is Minga its own system, or can it connect to current school systems like Synergy or PowerSchool? That's a great question, Vanessa. We didn't really talk about that today. So a really important part of Minga is that we actually integrate fully with your SIS, so with PowerSchool or Synergy. So we're actually going to roster all of your student data. That's going to be a really important step, and that happens during our onboarding process, which takes about 2 weeks. But we can do that rostering step in our first 60-minute call. So we'll pull all that data in so that you can have all this mapping back to those students specifically. We also provide digital IDs, which is a core fundamental component of the digital hall pass solution. The other exciting thing that we're doing right now is actually working on a second version of that integration with your SIS, and that actually allows that data to go back into that SIS, so back into Synergy or PowerSchool. So that's something that we're working to deliver this year as well. If that's an important conversation, Vanessa, I would definitely recommend let's get on a call and we can chat through that and show you how easy that is to set up. Where will students see their hall pass? Personal device or, yeah, so that's actually a really good question, Joe. So Minga is actually fully built for the web browser. So I would say 95% of our schools that we work with have one-to-one devices. So students would access predominantly on that one-to-one device. We do also have a mobile app. So teachers or students can access that, access Minga on the mobile as well. That being said, it just depends on what your school phone policy is. At the high school level, we see a lot of schools shifting to a no phone policy, which is really cool, I think, personally. But the benefit of having both mobile access and desktop is, think about managing events like maybe a football game or prom or any of these things that are outside of school hours. Students are going to have their phones, right? Maybe they didn't bring their hard copy ID, but they have their phone. Boom, they can check into that event with Minga or with their digital solution right on their phone. And then for you on the admin or teacher side, it just makes it really easy, maybe if you're kind of walking through the halls, to be able to have access really quickly to see what's going on. Or maybe you use iPads or a tablet of some kind, and then you can download the app and access it that way. So super accessible, just depends on what your school structure is. So that's a great question. Doing my first. Are devices provided for digital hall passes, by Vivian? So we don't actually provide devices specifically. This, again, most schools that we're working with either have a one-to-one device, or students might be using it on their phone, depending on what your setup is. Joe Price, I love that question. It means you're interested. Again, we're gonna follow up, but Joe, let's hop on a call. We don't have to, do like the full demonstration or anything. We can just get on a call and talk about price for your school. So please feel free to email me. I'm going to change the slide. I think my contact information might be on this slide. So again, we're going to send this slide deck out to everyone after the call here. You can book a demo. And Joe, once you get on that call, you can let, if you're working with me or one of the team members, let them know that you were on the webinar. Let them know what you're interested in. We'll ask a few questions to clarify kind of the size and scope of your need, and then we can get you that price. So happy to work with you on that.
Joe, also, once the webinar finishes, you will be redirected to a booking link. So if you wanted to just hop on and schedule a time with Jeremy, you can do that there as well.
Awesome. Thank you, May. Appreciate that.
No worries.
And Tara is mentioning, that she absolutely agrees that it should be set as a norm from the top, so by those administrators. And then asked, are teachers logging this on their computer or phone? And if we see a student in the hall, check the app to see if they have given a pass. Yeah, again, it just depends for each teacher. Some teachers are more comfortable on their phone. Some teachers want to be on their laptop or whatever device they use in the classroom. So it's really just accessible to them in whatever means makes more sense. So you really get to choose on what that is. I've heard of some schools, where maybe there were some teachers that, didn't like using their phone in the classroom. And so, they got on their laptops or they got on their iPads that they got from the school and operated it that way. The teachers required to have an iPad in order to use. So no, not required to use an iPad, Julie. They can use, like I said, laptop, phone, whatever that looks like. We don't have a one-to-one, so we would need a designated computer for each class. So Doris, yeah, if you don't have one-to-ones, it's an interesting question. I'm assuming that your teachers have some device that they could use. So in that instance, one great option is just having a teacher-led workflow. And we have actually a really cool new feature called My Class, which allows teachers to get access to the list of students in their class. And then within 2 clicks, they can assign hall passes to whatever students, as well as behaviors as well, for any of those PBIS reward conversations. But Doris, we definitely have a solution for you if you don't have one-to-one devices, and if your students aren't bringing phones into the class. So something that we can support, I would recommend. Let's get on a call. And then it looks like Vivian would like to get on a call. Awesome, Vivian. Again, like May said, we'll direct you to a booking link right after this, and we can find some time to walk through that. Cool. Just wanted to say thank you to everyone. Really appreciate all the questions. Like, that was fantastic. We'll figure out the chat next time. Apologies for that. It would be great to have everyone kind of introduce themselves and get to know each other. I think we're all in this together. It doesn't matter what state you're in, what level of school you're teaching or running. These are really common challenges that we're all facing. And we know we talk to folks like you every single day, so we get it. We empathize with you, and we'd love to help. You know, that's what Minga's here to do. Our mission is to help make things easier for you, and you know, get teachers excited to teach again. So yeah, thank you so much everyone for the time. If there's no other questions, Patty, are we going to send the slides? Yeah, we'll follow up with the slides and some booking links here as well. So you'll definitely get all the information that we chatted about today. We use Minga Fridays and rolling over next year to use the hall passes. How different will the new features be? Yeah, I mean, in terms of actually getting the hall passes, I don't think there's a huge difference. If you're using digital IDs and the community module right now, it's a pretty seamless transition. And the other thing is, if you need help with anything, you have access to our customer success team. So there's training available, both from a self-guided perspective, but you can also connect with one of the members of our team, and we'd be happy to walk you through that process and get you set up. So yeah, I would say pretty easy. And if you need help, let us know, and we're here to help make that transition smooth for you. Okay, awesome. Well, thank you, everybody. Have a great rest of your week, and we look forward to connecting with you again soon.